When we look at all that we have, all that God has given us, we render back to God the things that are God's. God doesn't just sit on it. He gives it back to us in ways that are mysterious and amazing. We always give thanks to God for all of you and mention you in our prayers, constantly remembering before our God and Father your work of faith and labor of love and steadfastness of hope in our Lord Jesus Christ. The ministry of the church and this church is most certainly a labor of love, and something for which we should always remember to give thanks. The level of impact that our ministries have on the lives of people most of us here will never meet is astounding at times. As you might know, I'll often spend my Thursday afternoons visiting families that we've housed through the Deposit First program at Hope House. There are nearly 250 people that we've housed since 2019. And we can't share every story. But there is one story of one family that I'd like to share with you this morning. I'm changing the names, but everything else is true. So Jane Smith has 2 teenage daughters and 1 granddaughter who has special needs. Jane had for years worked for the state of Louisiana's welfare office, and her job was to assist people with appeals after being denied aid. Now, it is an unfortunate side effect of jobs like this that we can often become somewhat callous to the needs of others simply because of the volume of needs that we hear every day. It's a self-defense mechanism. We can't help everyone, and we tell ourselves that. And Jane was no exception. She couldn't help everyone. And many days she would have to tell people that they didn't qualify for state aid, even though they might have desperately needed it. One day, Jane was driving when she was T-boned by a pickup truck. The wreck landed her in the hospital for weeks and rendered her unable to work, to care for her daughters or her granddaughter, or even herself for months. By the time she had recovered, her position at work had been filled by someone else, and she soon found herself in the unemployment line. Time went on with no luck in finding a new job. Between her medical bills and daily life, her savings became depleted. She called the state, the office where she herself used to work, and was told that she and her family did not qualify for state aid because her annual income that she had already received for the year was just too much. She did finally find a job, and even though she had found work, the eviction pause from COVID had ended, and because of all of the bills, she had fallen behind, and then she and her daughters and her granddaughter lost their home. But even though she had found work, she just couldn't catch up. She couldn't save up enough money to pay for a new apartment. Between the security deposit, the light and the water deposit, first and last month's rent, everything she'd owe was more than she makes in a month. And then one of her friends told her to call Hope House. And so she did, and she came up here, she met with Joy, and after getting to hear Jane's story, Joy got to work. She found them a new house, she arranged everything with the landlord, got them some new furniture to move in with renesting, and a few months later, that landlord that she had set them up with had developed a very loving and protective relationship with his family, and he found a better house for them and moved them into that one. It was a little bit bigger. A few months ago, he asked them to move again into a larger space so that everyone could have their own room, and now Jane is leasing to own that home. When I met with Jane earlier this year, she told me her story. And throughout telling the story, she'd intersperse it with a line of gratitude here and there for Hope House, for Joy and Donna, for the church, for this ministry, for the help that we were able to give her when there wasn't anything else she could do. And there's a lot that goes into this ministry. Joy and Donna had to establish these relationships with landlords all over the city who'd be willing to work with us to get people off the street. They do all of the follow-up casework to keep people off the street. Earlene Venable teaches life skills classes here to help people maintain their new quality of life. Lori monitors all the payment requests, ensuring that the money gets where it's needed. Our check signers show up every week to sign those checks to make sure that they have the money in a timely fashion. The vestry plans and allocates the resources that are needed for the program so that those checks don't bounce. You entrust this ministry with your donations to make all of it possible in the first place. The move from your generosity to the kind of impact that we regularly have on families in our community can often go unseen or seem distant. And while it's good to donate specifically to this program and others like it that we operate, your support of the overall ministry of this parish enables many more ministries to take place. Now, I mention this because nobody's rushing to donate to the accounting costs, but it is important. No one's rushing to donate toward the utility payments, but it is important. No one's rushing to donate toward payroll or health insurance or pension payments, but all of that is necessary to ensure that we have the staff to do the work that we're going to do. And that's why every year at this time, we send out pledge cards so that the vestry can adequately plan for next year to see how we're going to be able to continue these ministries or expand them, and expand these ministries that we all find so meaningful and that are so impactful, not just to the people here, but to the people beyond these walls. Your continued support and generosity not only is important because it enables our life together, but it's also important because it is a part of discipleship. When we look at all that we have, all that God has given us, we render back to God the things that are God's. God doesn't just sit on it. He gives it back to us in ways that are mysterious and amazing. Look at what we do in the Eucharist, for instance. God gives us wheat and grapes, and then we put our hand to it to make bread and wine. We give the bread and wine back to God, and then God turns around and gives it right back to us. No longer mere bread and wine, but the very essence of his Son, in a form that we can perceive without dying. The Lord gives you your skills and talents, and you give those back to God in so many ways. And then God turns around and gives them back in ways that we can't fully know or understand. I was here yesterday morning, and Donna, Neil, and Laurie were out working in the garden. And I believe that God has given Donna and Laurie a love of nature and of gardening, and it's a love that they generously share with the church. And we can't know how God is going to take that and give it back. But I do know that people find the garden peaceful and enjoy it. It's a place of quiet contemplation for many people that I don't even know. People that stop in when we're closed, people that stop in throughout the day. We can't know how God is transforming that gift. We can't know the impact that it has on people. but we know that it does. We know that God transforms it. So who's to say what the fruits of that labor will be? You make your money, you give it back. The church converts your money into ministry. I know it's hard to see because so much of the church's work is done out of the limelight, but the dollar that you put in the offering plate ensures that there is a priest here to visit someone who's dying. It ensures that there's a musician here that plays your favorite hymn at just the right time, that makes everything click for you in a way that makes your heart burn within you. That there's an air conditioner here so you have a reason to use your winter coats all year long. We can't know how it all fits together, but we do know that all things work together for the good of those who love God. And when we center our lives in thanksgiving for all that God has given us, we find that God returns to us more than we could have asked or imagined. I don't mean that God is like the stock market and is giving you an ROI on your pledge. I mean that when we give to God, God always transforms our gifts into something yet more wonderful and then gives it back to us. That's the dance, and it's a dance that goes on forever.